Imagine a world where left unites with right, where traditional foes become allies. What if I told you this is happening right now in South Africa? Stay tuned to uncover the truth behind the ANC's alliance with the DA and other parties. Welcome to Inkarhi Its Time, where we dive deep into the issues that shape our nation. I'm Kondos, your host, and today we are exploring a hot topic, the ANC's recent political alliance with the Democratic Alliance and other parties. Is it a strategic move for the greater good or an ideological betrayal? Let's find out.
You know, where I strongly differ, there was no negotiation with MK. There was not even prospects of negotiation with MK. So we tried to articulate this before elections. Once ANC drops below 50, you are going to have this split between what leaders of the ANC want and what the followers of the ANC want. The followers of the ANC are very much leftists, right? But the problem, if you are a Mbalula or a Lamola and all of that, and you embrace anything that brings Julius and Zuma back in the fold, you are dead. There was never genuine appetite by the ANC to ever negotiate with MK and EFF. You will choose DA. Why? Who's posing a challenge to Mbalula in this dynamic? No one, in terms of his aspirations. Imagine bringing Julius and Floyd and whoever Zuma brings in the fold. You are dead, right? So we are seeing, the classical case, Saul, earlier you were saying the influencer of business. There's a classical case of principal agent issue. This whole idea that is management making decisions that are in the best interest of shareholders. I think we are seeing that classical case now. The leaders of the ANC are making decisions for themselves.
That's true.
The issue they fear is a revolt from the members. That's what they have to manage. They don't have to worry about managing the rest of us. I agree with you. The rest of us, comfortable life and all of that. I fear, how are they going to explain this
On the ground.
Let's entertain the DA and ANC coalition for a little bit. The DA hates redress. It hates it. There's no other way of putting it. The DA hates affirmative action. The DA hates employment equity. They hate it. They're in court as we speak now. I'm not talking about them talking on the sidelines or on television. They're in court saying stop your employment equity. This is now with a statistic produced by KPMG and the Department of Labor that says despite affirmative action, 70% of all new promotions and all new appointments are to white people. The white people are laughing. When you say affirmative action, they are laughing. What affirmative action are you talking about? I know, they hate it. The DA hates national health insurance. They hate it. They are going to court to oppose it. Now they are going to be part of a government that swears by those things. A government that says we want black economic empowerment, we want affirmative action, we want national health insurance so that there's no inequality. How are they going to get this right? Somebody was saying on radio, maybe it's just going to be a caretaker government in the next 5 years. Because how do you change the mindset of a DA that they hate black people? That they hate affirmative action? If they hate it, I'm not exaggerating when I say they hate it. They hate it with a passion. Right?
The African National Congress is known for its leftist stance, championing the rights of the marginalized and pushing for economic freedom. On the other hand, the Democratic Alliance leans liberal right, advocating for free market principles and individual liberties. At first glance, these two parties seem like oil and water. So, why would the ANC form an alliance with the DA and not the EFF and MK party? Political alliances are often about more than just shared ideologies. They can be a strategic necessity, especially in a fragmented political landscape. By uniting with the DA, and other parties, the ANC can gain majority support, ensuring stable governance and the ability to pass critical legislation. These alliances can also help address immediate crises, whether it's economic instability, public health emergencies, or national security threats. A unified approach can be crucial. Sometimes different parties may find common ground on specific policy goals, such as economic reforms or anti-corruption measures. But let's not ignore the potential downsides. An alliance with the EFF and MK party might seem more ideologically aligned with the ANC. However, significant policy differences and the potential for internal conflict could make such a partnership unstable and challenging to maintain. Critics argue that some ANC leaders, such as Fikile Mbalula and Ronald Lamola, might be driven by personal ambitions and jealousy towards Julius Malema. Having led the ANC Youth League alongside Malema, their current ambitions for higher office could see Malema as a threat. This perception of rivalry and ambition could influence their strategic choices, including aligning with the DA and these other parties to consolidate power and minimize internal conflicts. The decision to ally with the DA and other parties rather than the EFF and MK party could be perceived as a deviation from the ANC's original mission of economic freedom. Critics argue further that the personal rivalries and ambitions might have overshadowed the broader goals of the party, potentially compromising the interest of the marginalized masses. It's important to recognize that political decisions are rarely straightforward. The alliances formed and the negotiations undertaken are influenced by a myriad of factors, including personal ambitions, ideological differences, and strategic consideration. While some may view this action as a betrayal, others might see them as necessary compromises in a complex political environment. These kinds of political developments require all of us as voters to actively participate in our democracy. We cannot leave these critical issues in the hands of politicians who, in most cases, prioritize their personal ambitions over the interests of the voters. It is crucial that we, as citizens, hold our leaders accountable. I therefore call upon you to start participating actively and to challenge any decision by a politician that seems to go against the wishes of the voters and their well-being. Our democracy thrives when we are all engaged and vigilant.
Yeah, absolutely. A government for the government, by the government is not a democracy. The coalitions that we have now, no matter what we call them, are an opportunity for us to participate in the political realm as citizens, whether we are party aligned or not. The beauty of coalitions, and this is the world over, is that not all politicians are now just in a pact with each other that is unshakable. In fact, I was thinking about this in terms of parents. When you have parents in a home, many children have learned at a very young age how to play parents off against each other, how to, say mom said this, but dad said this. And I say that very crudely, but it's an example of the fact that coalitions mean that politicians need to negotiate amongst each other more. And one of the powers of negotiation comes from public pressure. We need to pressure the government and government role players in the directions we want to go. If we are silent, they have no reason to go one way or the other except what benefits them. Without our voice, they can do whatever they want. But when we have, as different sectors of society, a voice, constituents, when we organize ourselves in numbers, politicians care about that, not only because of the PR and public relations, but because they also know now more than ever that by the next election, which is only 2 years away, we can punish them at the polls if they do not listen to us in between elections.
Indeed.
But the chance and the opportunity to what we call upgrade South Africa exists. And when we are in conversation with communities of people and really give the opportunity for different people from different backgrounds in society that don't necessarily have access to power to say, okay, if I had to design the kind of South Africa I want, if I had to upgrade our South Africa in the ways that I want to, what would I do? And there's two important things we've learned from that activity. One is that once people have that understanding that co-governing South Africa is democracy, that all of us can actually and should actually have a role in envisioning the country, people get quite animated. They go from being very disillusioned to very animated. The second thing that we've learned is that there are so many opportunities for innovation in our system through participatory rather than simply representative democracy. I'll give you some examples of this in our work. One was that in Mlazi, we asked participants to rethink through what local government could look like. And they said to us, well, in their perfect South Africa, local government wouldn't exist because they don't want the buffer of very cumbersome bureaucracies and politicized bureaucracies. They would like communities to be able to come up with their own systems, their own budgets for their own projects, and take those to government. Now, one might say, well, that's outlandish, that would never work. But the point that it's making is that citizens are able to identify where the problems are, the stopgaps are in our democracy, and are willing to participate in things like budgeting, in planning, in envisioning the future, and coming up with projects in their environment. We've seen, because our platform asks people to do a 6-week project. We've been in 100 communities doing this. Over 60 of the projects, 6-week projects that people have come up with that start with things like farming, clinic committees, clinics, LGBTQI advocacy organizations. People have taken up those things, turned them into either long-term NGOs, long-term projects, or engaged governments on a long-term basis. And so what we need to do in this country is actually give people the space to participate meaningfully.
Yeah.
Right now, politicians have taken away the meaning of participation by politicizing it, and we need to depoliticize it radically. Well, I'll point to two things that I think are important. The first is what I call devolution of power. What we absolutely need is more bottom-up governance and democracy in the country. And so politicians have come up with this idea of a national dialogue. And as much as I rolled my eyes at the idea of another national dialogue, because I know what political talk shops can look like, I do get excited at the idea of actually going street by street and community by community and going to listen and engage with different communities of people about solutioning for the country. And if that's what a national dialogue can look like, a process of 6 months to a year of really organizing each community in this country for the views that they hold, for the issues that they have, for the ideas they have for society, and the ways they would like to participate in that, I'm all for it. And I hope that politicians can be swayed towards that kind of thing. And then the second thing is that we all need to mobilize ourselves and organize ourselves for change in different ways. I remember during the counting of the results, the business community came out. I was quite surprised. While we were still counting the results, came out with a joint statement from business and society saying, this is what we would like to happen after this election. And a lot of us were up in arms about it. But the truth is you get what you organize for. Business sectors in this country are more organized than most of us are. And yes, they have the resources to do that, but the point is that organizing is what changed things. You get what you organize for. Political parties are organized. In civil society, we have become less and less organized. We have become disorganized, in fact. And at the level of community, we are not organizing ourselves and really saying, okay, how do we construct things that we want as joint projects for success, joint ways in which we don't just use mobilization to protest. We also use mobilization for participatory processes, for example. We use mobilization not only to vote, we use mobilization also to start collaborative projects in our communities. I think we need to reorganize and energize society. I worry that we're all waiting for somebody else to do something for us and on our behalf. Yeah. And I think that the power and devolving power to communities is one of the biggest steps forward, so that we don't wait just for government to fail or succeed. We become a government and co-governors of the society from wherever we are.
I mean, we cannot be blinded to the fact that
ideologies of political parties are what actually make those political parties. Ideologies are their identity. So there is no way that they would have shifted in 14 days of negotiation. And I think that's something that we need to know as South Africans. But also what is happening here, Alicia, is that these negotiations are also undermining something that the voters have been calling for, which is making whatever intentions public all the way. And we are seeing already that these conversations are happening behind closed doors. At the moment that is pivotal, where positions that are important in Parliament are being nominated, I think that it's likely to compromise, issues of trust that we are really working so hard collectively as citizens with political parties or the political system to regain in South Africa. And I think that's a point of caution that we'd like to put out there to say, Alicia, can political parties, even during this negotiation phase, find some mechanism to make this conversation public? I mean, I was looking at the statement of intent, for instance, Alicia. There is nothing that is talking about engaging citizens. There's been a call for a national dialogue, for instance. So all of this is left in the hands of political parties with very, very, very intricate proposals being made, for example, where possibilities of the DA leading portfolio committees in Parliament, which are fundamental to what we are calling a legislative process in the country, for instance, with the kinds of policies that the DA has, which South Africa currently is sensitive to, at least from what I've been hearing in the various spaces and in the public domain. So for me, that is something that worries me, and I suppose it probably worries a couple of South Africans out there to say we still are having secret conversations, and then that has a possibility of undermining the voting that has been demonstrated by South Africans in the last couple of days in the 2024 elections. So I just wanted to point that out. I think that we are also at a place of memory. Some of us remember vividly how 1993 and 1994 felt, right? We remember vividly this language of a government of national unity in the very same hands of the ANC, in the hands of the National Party, which of course has grown now to become what you know as the DA, in the hands of the IFP. So we've tasted it, Alicia. Our families, as we speak, some of us are living with those wounds. And I think it's a very, very sensitive and delicate space to then be taken back to that kind of a memory without necessarily putting mechanisms in place that say, how are you then going to put in place an agenda of reparation, an agenda of healing those wounds for the nation? Because we cannot be just a situation of saying we are here now as if we've never been here before. We've been here before for the last 30 years. Something that is now being called a GNU is not a new phenomenon in South Africa. It has had its failures glaring, in our eyes as voters and as citizens. Of course, we are all working hard to remedy the situation, but can the political parties not go back to that place of darkness, that hole that we are trying to dig ourselves out of as citizens, and just blindly, President Cyril Ramaphosa and the ANC blindly are saying to South Africans, we'll just take the route of the government of national unity, without saying to South Africans, how are you going to correct the mistakes that you've done in the past in the very same name of GNU? And I think that is something that we need to be cautious about. And I suppose those are the issues that are troubling perhaps the progressive collective that we are seeing rising on the other side, which is your EFF, Al-Jama, and all of them, to say it is not time, it is not life as usual. The ANC is pretending as if we are all just rising from the forest, from the liberation struggle, and we are blind to governance. We are not. South Africans know what happened. And I think that is going to compromise these three political parties, at least, that are forming GNU, if they are not able, Alicia, to be honest about that reality. And also be aware about the level of consciousness that South Africans are demonstrating, even in the going back to voting, to say, we feel the responsibility as citizens to correct with our political parties. We are still giving them the vote to say, go back and correct, but involve us this time around, because clearly you couldn't do it on your own. Why do they think they can do it now without citizens? And I think for me, that's a big question. And worse now, you actually want to take a delicate process now, and legitimize it through putting people in strategic positions of portfolio committees, of ministries, and so on, without necessarily addressing those questions. And for me, it's really just a sugarcoating and recushioning some of the arrangements of CODESA. One that we had, it's another way of recushioning what we're calling the sunset clause. And I keep going back to this because I feel like our politicians are not hearing this message.
In the complex world of politics, alliances often transcend ideological boundaries. The ANC's decision to ally with the DA and other parties might seem contradictory, but it could also be a strategic move to navigate immediate challenges and ensure stable governance. It's a decision that undoubtedly sparked debate and calls for critical examination. Now, we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on the ANC's alliance with the DA and these other parties? Do you think it's a strategic necessity or an ideological betrayal? Leave your comments below and let's keep this important conversation going. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Inkarhi Its Time for more in-depth analysis and discussions. Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged. Take care.